And we really are. We're believing that God is going to move. He already is. I mean, we have been maxing out this 10:30 service the way that we currently have set up every single week of this year. And so we're so excited to make space. This whole room is going to look different. Not only are we going to have the new entrance, new serve teams, and it is a great time to get involved. Mia mentioned it then, but next Sunday we have Connect course in the evening. Yeah, Ellie's pumped for it because she heads it up. And it's a great opportunity for you to find out more about our church, a bit of our story, a bit of our vision. But the thing that I love about Connect Course is mainly we talk about you. We want to find out, how has God wired you? What are the passions? What are the gifts that you may have and that you can bring to what we're doing here at Courageous Church? And honestly, the last few Connect Courses, they've been amazing. The last 4 or 5 have just been absolutely awesome. And our serve team is growing week after week after week. So maybe you've been around Courageous for a while and you haven't jumped on a serve team yet. Maybe you're brand new and you just feel like, hey, I want to plug in straight away. You can scan the QR code in front of you that says scan to connect, and all the details for Connect Course are on there. We would love to have you. Oh, yeah, and by the way, we have dinner as well. So we'll hook you up. It's going to be a great time. But one of the things I love personally about Connect Course, it's kind of one of the things I love about being a pastor, is I just love getting to know people. I love hearing people's stories, their journey. But one of the things that I particularly love getting to know is different people's kind of passions, but maybe if I put it this way, they're like dreams. The things that people really would love to do or experience, where they'd like to go in the world. I love it because I think it says a lot about somebody. It says something about your background. It says something about your passions. And I'm going to tell you one of my dreams today, something I don't even my kids know, but this is something that I have harbored in my heart since I was a child. And it's simply this: one day, I want to hold a Guinness World Record in something. I don't really care what it is, but I want my name in that book, right? And if you don't know what I'm on about, the Guinness World Book of Records is basically the premium thing in the world that kind of measures when records are broken. And when I was growing up, I'm a child of the late 80s, early 90s. In the UK, we had this program called Record Breakers. I don't know if it ever made it over here to the US, but it was back when we only had 3 channels. So, you just enjoyed whatever they put in front of you. I remember the day we got 4 channels. And then the day we got 5 channels, it was a big day in the Thomas household when we got 5 channels. And then we leapt from 5 channels to 500 channels. You know when cable came in, those of you guys who are old enough with me, and then you just still watch the 5 original ones anyway, so I don't know why you ever bought the package. If you are sub 20, you don't even know what I'm on about. You haven't ever heard the phrase terrestrial television, right? But anyway, Record Breakers was this TV show, and it really was just that. Every week, they would just do these different challenges, and they would, break different Guinness World Records. And originally when it started, it was all to do with like sport and physical challenges. But the longer that the program went on, the more and more obscure the records became as they were just scraping the barrel. But that's where I felt like it was accessible for me. Because I'm not a great athlete. I don't have incredible physical attributes. But I think I could, now earn a world record. Do you know that there is a world record for how far you can throw a washing machine? 14 feet, 7 inches, right? So, next time you need to throw out a washing machine before you go at the top of Bees Ferry to the recycling center, just see how far you can throw it. If you're anything close to 14 feet, just maybe put some work in. You could own that. Do you know that there is also a world record for how long an adult can stay on a child's play swing? You know that? 36 hours. Can you imagine trying to get back up after that? You wouldn't be able to walk for the rest of the week. But, as these records came on, I was like, yeah, maybe I could actually be a world record holder. I even thought about trying to live get one on the stage today and so I was like, what could I do? I'm not going to, but I want to put the challenge out here. I want some people to attempt to become a world record holder and tag Courageous Charleston on social media. Here you go. Here's the 2 that are very easy doable. There is a world record for how many toilet rolls you can stack in 30 seconds. It's 28, right? So if you just get 29, you're a world record holder. Somebody in our youth, you got to try this Sunday, all right? There's another one for the most number of socks you can put on in 1 minute, 53. So get home, get those socks out. If you get 54, you're a world record holder. But the reason I was thinking about this is because this week, I saw a challenge that I finally thought, I can smash that. I'll be a world record holder. It's so simple, so easy. I was like, that's in my wheelhouse. And it's simply this. It's staying the longest in the world's quietest room. Now I thought, oh, that's easy, right? I'm a dad of 4. Life is loud. 2 reasons for that loudness are sat on the second row. The other 2 reasons for the real loudness are in the kids' space right now. I've been solo dadding for the last week. Saz has been in the UK having a great time with friends and family. Life is really loud. So the idea of just sitting quiet, yes, Jesus, I can do that. I'm going to be really easy. This room's actually in Minneapolis, and they've designed it to be the world's quietest room. It actually sits at an incredible -9 decibels. So it's not just quiet, it is like it actually sucks any kind of noise out of the space. And I was looking at this, I was like, man, that'd be easy. Come on, take some snacks, I'll be fine, have a coffee, we got it. And then I found out that actually it's not quite as easy as it seems. And that no one has stayed in this room to date longer than 45 minutes. There's rumors that maybe some people might have made it to 50, maybe to 55, but no one has done over an hour. I'm sitting there, I'm like, you're sitting in a room, surely. That would be way easier than that. But actually it points to something far, far deeper. And the reality that for most of us, me especially, we struggle with silence. We struggle with stillness. We struggle with stopping. We get confronted by the things that are really going on. But as we're going through this journey of talking about prayer and how do we connect with God, this is such an essential piece of the puzzle. Why? Because prayer often starts with stopping. It actually often starts with the rhythm and the practice of pausing, of quiet, of stillness, of silence. In fact, I'd tell you this today, that if you want to encounter and connect with God, you have to embrace the quietening of your soul. And I personally really struggle with this. It's me. I'm a loud guy, right? My kids are loud because Dave and Saz are their parents, so we've only got ourselves to blame there, right? But I struggle with it as well because I'm also somebody that is really passionate about getting on and doing something with your life. And in 21 years of preaching, I've resisted preaching this message because I've seen so many Christians take Psalm 46:10, be still and know that I'm God, and use it as an excuse for inactivity. Use an excuse to I'm just waiting on God. He's going to move. When actually the scriptures are full of God provoking us and calling us to go and take a faith step. But as I've been preparing and Saz and I were praying for this series, there is something about this place of stillness and silence that is absolutely essential if we're going to encounter God in the fullness that we can. And I wonder if our generation might just be the generation in all of human history that needs this the most. Why? Because there's so much noise, isn't there? Do you know, statistically speaking, it is almost impossible in the everyday life to actually experience silence anymore. Even the electricity system in our houses, it hums at about 50, 60 hertz, and you can't hear it with your ears, but your body picks up on it and processes the noise. There's the constant hum of the HVAC. No matter how expensive the system was, you're still going to hear it. You know, in Charleston, there is always somebody driving a truck with an aftermarket exhaust on it, right? Yeah, you know what I'm saying. I remember when Saz and I first moved here, we were about a month in. It was quite stressful. We were staying out at some friend's house in Owendor, and it's beautiful. It's right off in the, by the creek, and I'm like, I need to spend some time with God. I get up before sunrise. I make myself a coffee. I go out on the deck. I'm pulling the coffee up to my lips. I'm like, oh, the peace and quiet. And then suddenly, and some geezer, British word for bloke, another British word for man, has fired up his 250 and is driving. Like, it's so hard to find quiet in Charleston, isn't it? Do you know, it's fascinating. I was looking into this week. Cities have what is now called acoustic footprints. So different cities have different sounds. New York is like this sort of low drum of constant voices and traffic. It's just like this constant draining noise. Whereas Tokyo is actually technically quieter, but it's actually sharper with beeps and loud noises that kind of shock you. And old European cities, they have this dense quiet to them because of the stone buildings and the small streets. Do you know that certain AI applications can tell where you are in the world just by listening to the city that you're in, from the ambient noises. You know the films are real, you know, when they can track you. I mean, goodness me, who's had it when you're just talking about something in the next 10 minutes on social media, you get an advert? It's listening. But you know what? It's not just changing our world, it's changing the natural world. Do you know that birds now chirp and speak at a higher pitch to be heard over traffic? Whales have changed their migration routes because of the noise of boats. And in certain species have stopped communicating altogether because they can't hear each other. There is so much noise in the world around us. We need this more than ever. I wonder what the answer to this would be for you. What is the noise going on in your life? Maybe it is the audible, relentless sound of trucks passing by, the C-17s overhead, or maybe it's the noise of the fear about the financial issue you're facing. Maybe it's the nagging noise of the relational challenges in your family. Maybe it's the nagging noise of the failures that seem to just keep coming back around again and again and again. If we're going to pray, we need to step into this because there's more in it than you can even see right now. And there's a story in the scriptures that brings this to life in just the most amazing way. And it's the story of Elijah. If you've never read anything about Elijah, we find him in the Old Testament. He was called a prophet. And just to simply explain that, it meant that he could hear from God and he was called to lead God's people. That's all it was. And there's this moment in God's people that they're in a bad way, right? There's a king, his name's Ahab. He's married a woman called Jezebel. She's bad news. And she corrupts him. And he then leads God's people to start following a false god called Baal, B-A-A-L. And there's all these prophets of Baal, and they lead the people of God off. And they're, you know, it's kind of a violent fate. All this kind of stuff is bad, it's bad, it's bad. And so God says to Elijah, you got to challenge. You got to challenge the prophets of Baal. And so Elijah steps up to the plate. And he says, right, meet me on this mountain and I've got a challenge for you. We're going to set up 2 altars. You pray to your God, I'll pray to mine. And the one that answers, they're the real true God. The prophets of Baal, hundreds of them turn up, say, yeah, fine, we'll take you on. Elijah on his own, he's not even got any help. And the prophets of Baal start praying. They start chanting. They start dancing and singing and nothing happens. So they sing a little bit louder and nothing happens. They get a bit more frenetic and nothing happens. They even start cutting themselves. Elijah, he even actually starts to take the mick. He says, is your God asleep? Is he taking a nap? Can you imagine the bravado? Hundreds of violent people over here. And he's like, where's your God? Now it's my turn, he says. And in fact, he douses the altar with water. It's soaking wet. It's dripping. He is literally saying, I'm going to prove to you without any shadow of a doubt that God, my God, is the only one. He prays. Fire from heaven comes down. The victory is there. What a day. Elijah's the man. You can even think about it, like flying high. He then actually takes all the prophets of Baal out. I mean, he's a beast. All until the next day, when this happens in 1 Kings 19. Now Ahab, the king, told Jezebel, bad news, everything that Elijah had done and how he had killed all the prophets with the sword. So Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah to say, may the gods deal with me, be it ever so severely, if by this time tomorrow I do not make your life like that of one of them. In other words, I'm coming to get you. And suddenly within a second, the great prophet that's just seen the fireworks of faith, the move of God, is turned into a fearful young man on the run. Look at this. Elijah was afraid and ran for his life. We all have something that will make us do that. We all have something that will press a button. Maybe it's the thing that you really don't want to go wrong at work. Maybe it's financial challenge. Maybe it's that health news. There is something that presses our button, and I'm not saying it doesn't matter. It was an issue, but it provoked something deeper in Elijah that in fact only stillness and silence could cure. Look at this. He left Judah. He left his servant there while he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness. When he came to a broom bush, he sat down under it and prayed that he might die. I've had enough, Lord. Take my life. I'm no better than my ancestors. You ever had a moment like that? Maybe not to the extreme of perhaps wanting life itself to be over, but fine, I'm quitting, putting my notice in. I'm done with this relationship. We tried. It's over. What about this one? Done with church. for not going back again. I gave God his last chance. Fascinating. Then he laid down under the bush and fell asleep, exhausted. Trying to live life in his own strength. Trying to do it on his own. And do you know what I love about this? God doesn't come in here and start telling Elijah off. Look at this. At once, an angel touched him and said, get up and eat. He looked around, and there by his head was some bread baked over hot coals. Who knows fresh baked bread is the greatest thing on planet Earth? Can I get an amen? How good is God? Cooking him up a nice loaf. Isn't it fascinating that in his issue, he came and met him in his need? Came and met him in this moment. A jar of water he ate and drank, and then he lay down again. He's exhausted. An angel comes a second time, and he touched him again and said, get up and eat, for the journey is too much for you. Some of us, maybe we're in a point in life where simply what you just need a good meal and a good night's sleep. Sometimes it can solve a lot. We can feel anxious and worried and fearful. Sometimes we want a miracle. God said, just have a sandwich first. So he got up and ate and drank. Strengthened by that food, he traveled for 40 days and 40 nights, same time Jesus was in the desert, until he reached Horeb, put a marker on that, we're coming back to it, the mountain of God, where then he went into a cave, put a marker on that, we're coming back to that as well, and he spent the night. And the word of the Lord came to Elijah. Look at this, church. It doesn't say challenges him. He simply asked, and this is how I imagine God said this to him. What are you doing here, Elijah? I think there would have been a tone in the voice of God that was an invitation rather than a challenge. You see, many of us are trying to get an answer for God, and we're not listening out to the questions he needs to ask us. Often there is a question that will unlock more in you than the answer you're looking for from him. Can you imagine the moment? This is how I imagine Elijah saying this. I've been very zealous for the Lord Almighty. The Israelites have rejected your covenant, torn down your altars, put the prophets to death by the sword, and I'm the only one left, and now they're trying to kill me too. Maybe you had a moment like that this week. Oh! They said they would do this. They let me down. They let me down. Now I've got to do. It's real life, isn't it? Look at what God does. Because what does Elijah want? He wants the same thing you and I want. Answer. More fire from heaven, Lord. More movement. Can you challenge those people? Look what God says. The Lord said to Elijah, go out and stand on the mountain in the presence of the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by. You know, God knew that what Elijah needed is what you and I need, that before we get the plan, we need his presence. Because the presence of God can transform you in every moment you find. The plan will only ever pull you out of that singular moment. It's something in this journey that we need to realize that actually there is available to us the presence of God every single day. And one of the key things is unlocking a rhythm of stillness and silence and pause and quiet. Many of you know this story, but I love this part. This is the bit that's most famous. Look at this. He goes outside. Then a great and powerful wind tore the mountains apart, shattered the rocks before the Lord, but the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind, there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. Just put a pause on it there. It doesn't say that God never moves in those ways. This is the same God that parted seas. It's the same God that moved mountains. Why doesn't he move in those moments? Because those things were just more noise. Because what happens? Then came a gentle whisper. When Elijah heard it, he went outside. See, the problem with noise is it just keeps taking from us. I was researching it this week, and I found it fascinating that one of the key things all of the noise in our world does is it really kills creativity. We're living in a world where we've got more to consume now than ever before, and often we think that I'll get smarter, I'll get more creative, I'll have a breakthrough if I just get more information, do another course, go on another train, do another thing, and there's a place for that. But you know, the way that God's created our brain is that creativity actually works in quiet. And actually what happens is you need to create space so that your brain can do what's called association. It can start putting together the ideas that have sat back there that have been quietened and silenced by the noise. I came into 2026, and one of my goals in 2026 is to try and preach better. I'm not trying to preach better to prove anything to anybody. It's because I'm passionate about life change. And I take my role seriously. And so I started watching my messages back, critiquing them. I got some coaching from some people, and I was like, God, I've got to do an even better job possible of bringing your word. And here's why, because if it's just for one person to leave today, having had a move or a touch of God, then everything is worth it. And so I've been preparing differently. I've been working harder. But do you know one thing I've done? Every single week when I'm preparing, I take 15 minutes of silence to lie down. And it's interesting because every single time I've done it, I've been like stuck on the message. I've gone and lay down, silent, woken up with the answer. I did it in the office recently. Just lay down on the concrete floor, turn the lights off, lock the door, pretending no one was there. Somebody came knocking at the door. I was like, I'm not answering. There's something about stillness. There's something about quiet that does more for us than we can even imagine. Let's carry on the story. Look at this. When Elijah heard it, he pulled his cloak over his face, went out and stood at the mouth of the cave. And then the voice said to him again, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" Elijah replies the same thing, but I think it was a different phrase. There's something about strength being born in the stillness that we need. Look at this. He replies and he says, this is how I think he says it a second time. I've been very zealous for the Lord, but maybe I'm recognizing I'm doing it in my own strength. The Israelites have rejected your covenant. Actually, I've been looking for people approval more than God approval. They've torn down your altars. They put your prophets of death. I'm scared. The presence and the question unlocks what's really going on in Elijah. I love this next bit. The Lord starts, then comes the plan. Go back the way you came. Go to the desert. And we're not going to read all this, but he talks about anoint this person, anoint that person. They're going to be part of my plan to help set my people free. But I want to pull your attention to this. Yet I reserve 7,000 in Israel whose knees have not bowed down to Baal and whose mouths have not kissed him. In other words, what he's saying is, you're not on your own. In fact, Elijah, you're 7,001. You see, the reality is, the problem for us is that if we're not spending time in the presence of God, we start to see things inaccurately. How many times has the moment that you've paused, you realize the problem isn't quite as bad as I thought it was? Or maybe it is, but now I can see a way out. It's the classic story. Guy goes to a cafe. He's there. He's on a walk with his dog. He needs to go and buy a coffee. Chains his dog up to a little picnic dining table. Goes inside. His dog gets spooked by something. The dog starts to belt it up the road. Only problem is he's dragging the table with him. And the more he looks back, the dog goes faster because he's chased by a thing. And the problem is that's like you and me. We are running up roads chained to inanimate objects that actually have no power in them. Fear, false events appearing real. There's something about pausing and stopping that reframes not just us, ourselves, our problem, but even our view of God himself. You know, I said earlier that I've kind of resisted for over 20 years preaching this verse, Psalm 46, verse 10. Be still and know that I am God. You know, I don't know if you know this, but the way I've always read this verse is that it must have been kind of written to go above a day spa, you know? Just come and breathe. Whale noises in the background. Scent, you know, waving. I mean, I love a sauna. Anybody else love a sauna? Yeah, I love it. I wish that was a place. Wouldn't it be great if God said, I will always speak to you in a sauna? I'd be like, that'd be such a great excuse for me to buy the sauna that I want to buy. Anybody else, you know? But you know what? This verse, get this. This verse was written in and for a time of war. This wasn't written in the peak of everything going well. It was actually written in the depth of the opposite. And when you look at the word be still, it doesn't mean take a chill, relax. It means actually let go, cease, stop striving. There's a word in the Psalms, it appears 70 different times, Selah. Means to pause. In fact, nobody can quite translate it exactly, but it's simply this principle of create a rhythm of stillness and stopping in your life. Because otherwise you start to see things inaccurately. Why is it so important to stop and be still? Because stillness helps me know he's sovereign. In the busyness of life, the noise of life, this next ingredient in our prayer life, I think, is invaluable. This week, I loved seeing the fruit of the word from Saz last week. People coming and praying for the first time, praying out loud and realizing God was for them and taking off the conditions of, needing to be good enough. This week, I'm believing that some of us are going to have encounters with God. I'm believing as we start to create a rhythm of stillness and quiet every single day, he will be good to do what he promised to do. Knock and you will find. Seek, look, chase after. And I got a challenge for you, church, this week. I want to dare you to have 2 minutes of stillness and silence in God's presence every day this week. I dare you. I believe that he will come good. As we came into this year, and there's a lot of pressure you can feel as a pastor to get things right and different things like that. And do you know what I felt the Lord say? Teach the church to come to me and I'll do what you can't do. Teach the church to come to me and I'll do more than you could ever do. Teach the church to come to me and I'll change more than you could ever change. Teach the church to come to me and I will move in ways that you could never do in your own strength. So I'm trusting him and I believe he will. So as we wrap up today, let me give you 4 things you can do. Here's the first one. You need to come back to the cave. Remember what I said? Put a pin in it, Hebron, and in the cave. Why is it so important? And what do I mean? You need to create a place in your world and in your life that can act like a cave for you. A place of stillness and a place of stopping. Because here's the cool thing. Elijah didn't just end up on any old mountain. It was a mountain in Hebron. He didn't end up in any old cave. It was a very specific cave. We spent the start of this year looking at the life of Moses. Look at this in Exodus 33. The Lord said to Moses, there is a place near where you may stand on a rock, a mountain. When my glory passes by, I will put you in the cleft of the rock, a cave, and cover you with my hand until I've passed by. God took Elijah not to some special place that's important because it's geography, but because of what he would have associated it with. It was the place God spoke to Moses. This was the place of the 10 Commandments. This was the place of the breakthrough for Israel. Where Elijah was a place that was going to provoke faith, build his sight to be able to be ready to hear from God. You need to create a cave in your world. Here's the thing, it might be the cave of your closet. With 4 kids and a busy life, mine and Saz's closet is one of the most holy places in our house. We get in there, we turn the light off, and we get on our knees. And wouldn't it be great if, but I just want to spend time with God. I want to get listen, I like journaling, but I want to go to a coffee shop and get my journal out. I want to look nice. I want to Instagram my time with Jesus. You want to tell the world more about what you're doing than listen to what God's doing? Just get in your closet. Shut the door. Make it ugly. Make it imperfect. Make a cave. You can make a cave out of the cab of your truck. Get to a meeting early. Turn the music off and sit there with your eyes closed. Who cares if someone looks at you? Because God's about to pass by. You can make a cave out of the walk in your neighborhood. You can make the cave out of anything, but you need to start making a cave. And it isn't about the place, it is about your heart. Just use the place to give your heart somewhere to go. And God will pass by. When you're in your cave, I want you to do 3 simple things. The first is relax. It's very hard to be still in a rush. Put the phone outside. Just take a minute and pause. Next, I want you to breathe. There's a lot in our world right now about the power of breath work. God's been doing it since creation. What made mankind different from the rest of the natural world around us? God breathed his spirit into Adam. And just speak. Not a prayer request, but a simple, repeatable statement of faith. This is what mine looks like. In my closet, God, you're here with me. That's it. Francis of Assisi used to say, my God, my all. My God, my all. Listen, I'm going to be praying this week that some of us have some profound moments the first time we try. But for others of us, this is going to have to be a discipline that we start to practice day in, day out, week in, week out. Because for some of us, it's going to take a while for the noise to die down. For some of us, it's going to take some fighting the distraction and the contention for the moment. Don't be surprised for the phone call 5 minutes before the appointment you made with God. Don't be surprised at the bill in the mail 10 minutes before you were going to get into your cave. Don't be surprised about the text. Don't be surprised. Just ignore it. It's just 2 minutes. And see what God could do. We're praying that at church on a Sunday, we're going to experience more of the presence of God. So we have moments of worship. And right now, as we finish out, we're going to praise him right now. I want to encourage you just to close your eyes, to pause in his presence. Desperate for a touch of heaven. Thank you, Jesus.